I've got a friend who many people would call him like a Renaissance man. He's a sommelier, and he's a U.S. coffee barista champion, and he travels all over the world, and he owns his own business, and all of these things. And so many people call him like a Renaissance man. But what I love about him is every time he shows up in Orlando, he'll call me immediately and say, "I only have an hour that I'm here. I would love to see you." And so recently that happened. I was on a run and he called me and he said, "Hey, I'm going to be at this coffee shop in 15 minutes. I'm here for an hour. I'd love to see you." And so I was like, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great." So I made it to the coffee shop in time, and there's another guy there who's also a pastor in Orlando. And my friend said, "I decided I wanted to speak to my two pastors today." And he said, "I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious, but I wanted to tell you about something that I experienced recently." And he said, "My life has been so chaotic the last couple of years that I just had this moment where I felt like I needed to surrender to something bigger than myself. To surrender to something bigger than myself." And he said it changed everything for him. Surrendering to something bigger than yourself. So I wonder, what does that mean for Christians? What does it mean for Christians to surrender? For us to surrender to something bigger than ourselves. Well, Jesus gives us a hint of this, doesn't he? Because he says at one point, "My kingdom is not of this world." And what he means by that is, my kingdom is not these kingdoms of greed and kingdoms of violence and destruction and selfishness. Like, those are not my kingdoms. But my kingdom is a kingdom of love, a kingdom of grace, a kingdom of hope, joy, and peace. A kingdom that if you surrender to, you become something bigger and be a part of something bigger than yourself. Now, I had a baseball coach growing up who said that it's not what happens to us that counts, it's how we respond. Maybe that's how we have to think about being a part of God's kingdom and surrendering to God's kingdom. That even though we live in a world with so many different kingdoms that are not of God, that the way we can move towards God's kingdom is to respond. Now, there are a lot of things that we have no control over, but we do have the amount of control to surrender to God's kingdom. And when we do this, we will become a part of something bigger than ourselves. We will become a part of the hope, joy, love, and peace and grace that only God's kingdom can bring. That's surrender. Amen.